An FMO, or a field marketing organization in the senior insurance sales space, has traditionally for decades been what's known as the top of hierarchy with different insurance companies and different carriers. Most insurance companies in general will not allow you to sell their product as an independent advisor unless you go through an FMO in order to do it. So FMOs hold a tremendous amount of power in the independent sales distribution space when it comes to senior insurance sales products. But what are some things that you need to know when it comes to selecting an FMO? Well, there's plenty of old secrets that some consider to be a little bit dirty, a little bit slimy, that FMOs use, that FMOs typically engage in. And in this video, I'm going to pull back the curtain that might upset a lot of FMOs out there.
This video is brought to you by none other than Hire Heroes, you guys. Hire Heroes is your one-stop shop when it comes to virtual staffing and making sure that you have qualified talent with your business. One thing that I love about Hire Heroes, you guys, is they've actually gone through the process already of vetting and making sure that your staff member is well trained to best fit your needs. Whether you need help with social media work, posting things on your accounts, responding to people that send messages to your social media accounts, whether you need help with data entry or a multitude of other things that they're qualified to do, Hire Heroes has got you covered. If you're having trouble finding quality talent and number two, affording to be able to run payroll for that talent, Hire Heroes has got you covered with an affordable alternative to have a virtual assistant working for your business. There's a link down in the description of this video to where you can learn more about getting your own VA through Hire Heroes. I certainly recommend it. They're what we use in our business for all of our virtual assistant needs, and you will want to make sure that you check them out today.
So in order to discuss some of the truths and some of maybe the deception that FMOs tell and people tell about FMOs in the insurance industry when it comes to senior sales products, we first must define what an FMO is. Now, FMO stands for Field Marketing Organization. Now, what does that mean? Well, historically speaking, FMOs have been around for many, many decades in the insurance space. And quite frankly, the definition of an FMO should be, by the traditional definition, a top of hierarchy organization. An organization that is at the top of a hierarchy, right, that is direct to a carrier. So anybody that is not direct to a carrier, and what I mean direct to a carrier, I don't mean somebody at street level direct to a carrier, because some carriers allow you to go direct with a carrier, but at street level and you have no ability to climb a hierarchy. But an FMO by definition is somebody that's part of a hierarchy, levels, a level system of different agencies, brokerages, and different compensation structures. But the FMO is typically the person that's at the top. They're the top of hierarchy. Now, the last 4 or 5 years or so, the definition of FMO has really changed to anybody that wants to call themselves an FMO that's a recruiter, quite frankly. And it's something that has become incredibly misleading. And there's tons of people out there that don't know the difference between an organization that has 25 agents that work with them across the country and one that has 25,000 that work with them across the country. One is a traditional FMO and they're top of hierarchy. Another is maybe one level above street level, right? And they just are recruiting and they, have a couple agents they work with, but they call themselves an FMO, and people that are looking from afar cannot typically tell the difference. The term FMO also has changed in terms of there are other terms in which it sometimes is referred to. NMA is one, NMO is another. National Marketing Organization is what that typically stands for. And typically, depending on the insurance company and the carrier you're talking to, the term might differ in its meaning, but universally, that is what an FMO is. Now, just because someone calls themselves an FMO, but maybe they have 2 organizations above them, there's people I see do this all the time. They might be here in the hierarchy. They might have an organization above them here and another organization above them here. So they're 2 levels down from the FMO, and they still call themselves an FMO. Incredibly misleading and, quite frankly, a lie. Just because someone calls themselves an FMO, just because somebody's a recruiter, does not really make them an FMO. Now, what is the role with FMOs when it comes to independent agents? Well, the FMO is there to provide, in my opinion, 3 things. Number 1, training and guidance in helping you build your business better. They're supposed to point you in the right direction. They're supposed to provide you with resources on prospecting, structure, branding, all of these different things to help you become a more legitimate business and acquire more customers and clients in the process. So training is one. Two would be additional resources, quoting systems, technology, tools, things like that. And we will come back to that a little bit later. And the third one is, in my opinion, and I think this deserves its own category, that is transparency, authenticity, honesty when it comes to what's going on in the industry, honesty when it comes to how certain things work. And that is something that has really been lacking in the FMO space for a very long time. And it's not really a new thing. If anything, I think it's less of a problem today than it was 10 years ago. Now, why is that? The birth of the internet, the birth of social media, we're not even the birth necessarily, but the growth of the internet, the growth of social media to where there are online forums. There's one that I run that's probably one of the biggest, most successful and impactful insurance agent, Medicare agent forums out there, and that's the Facebook group 7 Figure Medicare Agent. There's a link to it down in the description if you want to join. It's free, and it's a tool and a resource for everybody, regardless of your hierarchy. But when you have an FMO, traditionally what things looked like decades earlier before the rise of the internet and the rise of social media was the FMOs knew what was going on at the top. They were in direct contact with the people that were in power at the carriers and at various places in the industry, and they knew that what was going on at the top, and they liked to traditionally keep those things hidden behind a curtain. So agents like you and me, we don't have the ability of knowing particularly what's going on. Now, what are these things that they would keep behind a curtain? Well, one would be how you can get released, what the actual processes of being released are. The second would be levels. What do you actually need to do to qualify for a certain level? Blackout periods with Medicare Advantage carriers. What really are the blackout periods? We're going to go through all of these things one by one. But the FMO had the power because they're the ones that had the information and nobody else did. And it wasn't like you could jump on a Facebook group and ask a question and automatically a lie could get exposed for the whole world to see like it is today. Now, there is still dishonesty. There's still untruths that are told, and there's still lies blatant throughout the industry. And that's what we're going to kind of cover in this today. So the first thing you need to know about FMOs that's very, very important and things that they typically lie about is releases. Now, what does it take in order for you to get released from an FMO? Well, quite frankly, it's very simple. The FMO has to agree to release you. Point blank. Traditionally and historically, when you get released from an FMO, usually they have to provide you with a piece of paper, usually on their letterhead, on their company letterhead with the signature of one of the company's principals, agreeing to release you from your contract with that various carrier. Some carriers have their own specific forms that need to be signed by everybody involved, but usually if they agree to release you, your contract will move from FMO 1 to FMO 2 immediately. And it's typically just based on the processing time of the carrier and nothing more. There is no delay outside of that. Now, FMOs traditionally do have a little bit of a reputation, at least some of them, of not being always truthful or honest when it comes to releases. Sometimes they'll say they will release you, but it's a verbal contract. And then when the time comes that you actually want to be released, they will fight to release you. They might not even release you at all. Now, typically, what is the process of removing your contract if you're not obtaining a release? It doesn't mean that you can't do it, and certainly it's easier to do today than it ever has been in our industry, but the process is still a pain in the butt, and it's grueling, and it's not fun, and it kind of throws a damper and a monkey wrench in everything that you're doing. Usually, there is a process of self-releasing with most carriers, and it's going to vary depending on the actual product that you're actually selling and the actual insurance company that we're talking about. But with a lot of Medicare Advantage companies, traditionally today, you put in a self-release process, and with most of them, 90 days later, you'll be able to move the contract to a new FMO. But it does take 90 days. The problem with that oftentimes is that what you find is the old FMO, once you put in your self-release process, will not help you with anything anymore. They know you're leaving. and you're dead to them. The new FMO sometimes will be willing to help you, but they're not willing to help you that much until your contract is actually moved. They're not benefiting anything from your business until you actually move the contract and write some policies under them. They don't get credit for any old policies that you would have written under the old FMO, at least in the Medicare space. Then you have ancillary products, life insurance, Medicare supplement products that may go with that same structure, but others will make you wait 6 months, or maybe you have to go 6 months without writing a piece of business, or 6 months since you got contracted, either or, and that can be a little bit more of a painful process. Now, there is something also known as blackout periods when it comes to releases and moving your contracts. What is a blackout period? Well, blackout period is a Medicare Advantage contract term. What this means is a certain time of the year where from that time, from that day till the end of the calendar year, the carrier, not the FMO, but the carrier will tell you that they will not let you change FMOs because they don't want to deal with it during the busiest season for that carrier, usually AEP, OEP, that kind of stuff. Now, with most carriers, that's going to be 9/1 or 10/1, depending. I have seen FMOs tell people that their blackout periods are 6/1 or 7/1 or 8/1. And they say that it's the blackout period for the carrier when in truth it's the blackout period for the FMO, and they just refuse to grant releases after that point in time. And usually if they have a blackout period internally of 8/1, they don't advertise it, they don't broadcast it, and they know that if you do a self-release process, your 90-day wait would fall into the blackout period, to which point you wouldn't move until January 1st of the next following year. So they maintain your business throughout AEP, whether you like it or not, okay? So that's one thing that FMOs have been known to lie about. Certain ones, I should say, not all, but certain ones, is what is a real blackout period. Is it 9/1, 10/1? That's what the carrier's blackout periods are, almost exclusively with all of the large ones. But FMOs that tell you that their blackout period is June 1st, July 1st, August 1st, they are lying to you because that is their own internal blackout period where they will not be willing to give you a release, and they should be exposed for that. Now, are there situations where you ask for a release and maybe you don't deserve one? Yes, there's certainly situations where the FMO is justified to not release your contract. Let's talk about what those are. If you have debt, let's say you have a bunch of chargebacks, what happens if they release you is it was sold under their hierarchy with that FMO, and that debt can do what's known as roll up to the FMO. They call it roll up debt, to where it rolls up the hierarchy until somebody pays it. Now, what happens if they release you is they can get stuck with your roll-up debt. So it is perfectly justified for them to hold on to your contract and not be willing to release you if you have debt. If you have debt, you need to pay that debt if you want to expect to be released, and that's typically industry standard and also known as good business, okay? What are some other reasons that an FMO might be justified in not releasing you from your contract? Well, if they just recently, let's say, helped you out with some marketing dollars, or they split a lead order with you, or whatever the case might be, and you didn't make any sales from that, you haven't put any production up on the board to warrant that, that is a reason why you should not be allowed, I should say, to be released from your FMO. So there are situations where the FMO is justified and it's warranted for them not to release you. But let's say none of those are the case and you just want to be released. Some FMOs these days will just typically ignore your request, not release you at all, and that is typically known as bad, slimy business. Now, one thing that's also important to talk about on the release topic is if you are not direct to the FMO, there are other forces at work typically if you cannot get a release. Let's say that you're under a group who's under an FMO and you're in between them, right? And this group is in between you. Let's say there's an MGA or an SGA or a GA or anything like that. And the street level agent is here, that's you. You have somebody that's your direct upline, and then there's an FMO above them. Well, if you go to the FMO directly for a release, this FMO will then go to your direct upline and ask them, little Billy wanted a release, what would you like us to do? And that is also looked at as good business because in the eyes of the FMO, you are the agent of your direct upline, not of the FMO. And they cannot, in good conscience and in good business practice, provide a release unless your direct upline is okay with it and approves it. So sometimes you see FMOs not release somebody because their direct upline behind the scenes is not allowing it to happen, but the agent below blames the top of hierarchy FMO, which is not fair. So I want this video to be fair. I want it to be balanced. I also want it to be objective. So those are situations where the FMO might not be in the wrong, but there are certainly FMOs out there that lie about releases. They tell you they're going to release you and they don't for no good reason. They tell you that the blackout periods are earlier than they are to prevent you from moving, and they lie about other things like software and levels, which we're going to get into right now. So software, it's typical for FMOs to boast and tout their software. And certainly some FMOs have better software than others. But when I say software, I mean quoting and enrollment platforms. Now, I'm going to tell you that pretty much 99% of all FMOs in the insurance industry all provide the same software. This is something that none of them want you to hear, none of them want you to know, but they're all providing usually a combination of 3 softwares. 1 by the name of Sunfire, 2 by the name of Connecture, and 3 by the name of CSG Actuarial. Let's go through and dissect what these 3 tools are. Sunfire is a platform that allows you to do scope of appointments through text messages, through emails with all carriers that you have licensed and appointed with that FMO. It also is a tool that allows you to do quotes. You can run drug comparisons. You can do doctor checks for a multitude of different plans all in one place. You can see summary benefits. You can see plan documents. And most importantly, you can do the enrollment in person or over the phone remotely with the client on Sunfire. So it's an incredibly useful tool. It provides you the ability to do all of your work in one place, to where you don't have to go to 15 different portals to do all your work with the various carriers. You can simplify it and condense it into one portal. Now, Sunfire Sunfire and Connecture both do the same things. They're just different platforms that have a different look, different feel to them, and usually it's in the eye of the beholder. The beauty of them is in the eye of the beholder in terms of which one you prefer better, and it comes down to personal preference. But Sunfire and Connecture are 2 systems that virtually both do those things that I just talked about: quoting, plan comparison, scopes, enrollments with a multitude of different carriers. Now, the third platform that we're talking about is CSG Actuarial. CSG Actuarial is a quoting and data system most commonly used to quote Medicare supplement plans in any zip code in the country. And you can quote things like hospital indemnity plans. You can quote things like dental, vision, hearing plans. You can also see data and market analytics like market share data on Medicare Advantage plans, which Medicare Advantage plans have the most market share in your area, what's the Medicare Advantage penetration market share in your area. So CSG is a great tool. All FMOs talk about these tools, and usually a majority of them is going to have a combination of the 3. Usually they'll all have CSG. That's pretty standard. And then they'll either have one or the other with Sunfire or Connecture. It's always going to be one or the other. They always are white labeling these systems, providing them to you in a website at no charge, which is good. That's something they should do, but they're naming it something else. Could be looked at as My Medicare Enrollment Center, or My Medicare this, or My Medicare that. They're always giving it a different name. I've seen a tremendous amount of different diverse names for Sunfire or Connecture, but they are Sunfire Connecture. They're a white labeled version. They're the exact same thing. And they talk about it as if this system is exclusive to them, that if you contract with them, that you are getting this system and you can't get it from anyone else, which is complete bullshit. Sunfire and Connecture is universally provided by everybody. Now, if you like Sunfire better or you like Connecture better, it might matter to you which one you're getting from the FMO. What's nice about integrity marketing is any integrity marketing organization that you're working with provides you with what's known as Medicare Center, which provides all 3 in one platform. Most FMOs do not provide you with all 3. They provide you with 2 out of the 3, CSG and either Connecture or Sunfire. But organizations typically lie and they spout off this talk about technology, when it's in reality the same platforms and tools that every single group is using. It's always going to be Sunfire or Connecture and CSG, typically. Or maybe an organization will have all 3, like Integrity. But keep that in mind when they talk about their quoting enrollment platforms. It's not special. Every single organization provides it. It's typically industry standard at this point, where an FMO cannot function unless they provide their agents those quoting and enrollment platforms. Now, let's talk about levels. it's typical and common for an FMO to lie to their agents about level qualifications. Now, they might have their own internal qualifications that you need to follow, which would be fine if they presented the information to the agents as if it was their own internal process to provide certain levels. But they typically don't. Usually they blame the carrier. Normally they will say, this is the carrier's requirements. And in reality, it's their own requirements and they're just lying openly to their agents. The most common lie that you typically see with that is what it takes for an agent to get a GA contract. So in the Medicare Advantage world, I'm using this as an example, you have what's known as street level agents. And street level agents get the Medicare Advantage commissions. At the time of recording this in 2023, those commissions are $601 for a true-up, which is a new to Medicare Advantage sale, and $301 on the renewal in most states. It's a little bit higher in New Jersey. It's a little bit higher in California. But what you typically have is you have these street level commissions. Well, what's a GA contract is it's the first level above street. It's where you can earn a little bit of an extra override. A lot of times it's $30, $40, $50, $60, $70, depending on the carrier, the structure, how it's set up, everything else in between. And it's an override that you get on agents that contract underneath you when they make sales, and it's also an override you make on your own sales. So it's a little bit of extra on your own sales. Now, what is the requirement for a GA contract? Well, it's pretty industry standard that an organization is going to want you to be relatively self-sufficient. If you're not self-sufficient and you need your hand held on every little thing and you're asking a million questions, you probably don't deserve a GA contract. A GA contract, remember, when they provide you an override, let's say you go up to a $50 override with a GA contract, that comes out of your upline's override. So they're making less when you're able to make a sale. So if they're still having to do everything for you, do you deserve that GA contract? Absolutely not. And if you think that you still do and you can't tie your own shoes, I mean, God help you. But organizations typically lie about what it actually takes on the carrier side for you to obtain a GA contract. A lot of FMOs will tell you you need 3 agents that contracted under you to get a GA contract with most insurance companies in the Medicare Advantage space. Some will say you need 5 under you. I've even seen some that say you need 10 agents under you before they'll give you a GA contract. And they always say it's the carrier requirements. The truth of the matter is you need one person contracted under you that's not you in order to obtain a GA contract, okay? You need one person that's not you, and you have to be competent and well-trained enough to be able to take care of that agent to be able to earn a GA contract. The contract you sign with the carrier when you move up to a GA level is that you are going to be able to take care of them and help provide them training, resources, and you have to know what you're doing. You have to know your stuff, point blank. But you don't need 3 agents, you don't need 5 agents, you don't need 10 agents. You need one agent to obtain a GA contract. FMOs lie about this constantly. When I was actually newer in the business, I was lied to by an FMO on what this carrier requirement was. It was not the requirement back then. It's not the requirement now. It was the requirement probably 15 years ago. It is not the requirement now. So that's an example of a lie that an FMO might tell you about levels. And you have to be very careful about those kind of things. Now, are there other things that FMOs talk about? Yes, this video could certainly be an hour long, but this is an example of kind of what you need to look at. In my opinion, I think it comes down to releases. I typically recommend with an FMO that you get a release up front in writing. That is going to be good practice because then they put in writing that they will release you if you ever want to move, as long as you don't have any debt or anything like that. Blackout periods. Do they honor the carrier blackout periods? What software do they provide? Don't fall for the tricks that it's unique to them. It's going to be the case everywhere. And are they going to be transparent and honest with you about everything that's going on in the industry as well as levels? Anyway, guys, if you enjoyed this video and you feel like this was good information that you needed to see, do me a favor, smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm. It's going to help more people just like you find this information who need to hear it desperately. Make sure to comment your thoughts down below. Is there anything I missed when it comes to FMOs? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Make sure to subscribe for future videos. We'll come out with them weekly for you. And we'll see you next time, guys. Thanks so much for your time throughout this video. And here's to your success and your abundance. Happy FMO shopping. Thanks, guys.